Gray, with Commissioner Matt Gray with us today. I'll say a little bit about him here in a second. He was said the other day that, you know, we shouldn't give somebody a promotion to you know, to be a congressman from a state rep, which I of course agree with in one case in particular. But I also say that's not a promotion. It's just a different level of government. I will say Matt Gray's office is bigger than mine. His staff is larger. He's got a lot more cool stuff than I do. He does actual work like every day. You know, he's not demoted. It's not a promotion to get my job. You got quite a great job, and you do a lot for the community. And so, you know, events like this, we do this in the high school event too, that we do the SEAL events, the leadership and civics training event that we do every year for high school kids, where we talked about like the different levels of government. I don't think they're higher or lower. It's not a promotion or a demotion. They're just different jobs. And so actually, I want to start with you with a little bit of your history, how you got into this job, and to begin with. I mean, let's see, went to New Caney High School, you know, St. Houston State, you're engineer or project manager by trade, a lot of nice work in your lifetime. And then why did you go from that private sector work to what you do now? And like what drove that decision?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this morning, Congressman. And all the travels and all the worldly travels. I came back home after that, after a pretty successful career in oil and gas. And I suffer from swelling of Texas pride and Montgomery County pride. And I saw a big gap and void and what was happening around here and what I thought should be happening. And that was the ultimate driver, which prompted me to run for local office. It's a little bit more personal to stand back and peel back some more of the layers. My stepdad, growing up, worked for the county, and he retired after 30 years. So from a very small child, I grew up smelling asphalt. He had stopped by the house and a maintainer or equipment. And I grew up around all those old commissioners and all the old county hands back in the day, going up to the barn and eating lunch with Dad or the guys. And, you know, I just knew what was supposed to be happening. And when I quit traveling as much and looked around, I wasn't happy with what I saw. That coupled with, you know, the experience and wanting to do better, that's how I got here.
You did travel around the oil and gas center. I'm in the oil and gas crowd stuff. Where did you end up?
So I was a project manager, and I broke out in the ultra deep water sector. And some of the highlights were Nigeria, Brazil. I was a big fan of Newfoundland, looking up there. Norway had some cool projects. Singapore, quite a bit of sailing. Walked some rigs across the Indian Ocean and South Africa. Looked them up in Barbados, and got to at one time do all the acceptance testing and commissioned the biggest semi-submersible rig in the world, which was the Danny Atkins at that time, 2009, 2010. So a lot of fun doing it.
See the world.
Yeah, quite a bit of it.
Yeah, similar. I didn't work in the oil and gas sector, but my dad did Scotland, Egypt, Houston, back in Houston, goes back to Houston. After war back in Colombia, and here we are now. And I guess I saw my fair share to the military. A lot of sand and explosions. Just okay. So whoever was wondering, no, I didn't hit anybody. It's just I have nerve surgery, likely due to some fragmentation will still in here, big rock that I'll go collect from the lab as a souvenir next week. And that was right on top of my ulnar nerve, along with a big, just my arm is a giant lung scar tissue according to my surgeon. So that's the answer. Everybody asks. No, I didn't hit anybody, nor did I get into a fight. I did. It was just with a bomb 14 years ago. And I don't think the bomb won. It was a draw. It was a draw. let's call it that. So, one of the things that I talk about is, okay, and you said that it's a general civics question, what's the difference between what you do and what we do at the federal level? I guess say it's a lot. Um, at the federal level, I'll just start, right? I mean, I describe my job in three different buckets. One is we're like your customer service agent for the federal government. So, when you've got a problem with your VA application or FEMA or visa, whatever it is, or what usually it is, you're about to take a trip to maybe Barbados. And you didn't realize that your passport expired and you did not plan ahead. And so you call me in an emergency. They get you an emergency last minute appointment in downtown Houston so you can get your passport and go on vacation. We do that one all the time. We've got that one down to the site. But we've got great caseworkers to do that. So that's one thing. Another thing is generally communication. That's what this is. That's why we're doing this right now. It's communicating to constituents about what we've been working on and taking their questions, and that's a back and forth. And third, of course, it's voting. You've got to vote on legislation. Ideally, you have a representative who also writes legislation and works on legislation. But at the very least, you've got to go vote on legislation. Give your district a voice. So 1 out of 435. It's not a lot, but you can make your influence heard there in many other ways, and that's a whole longer discussion. When you vote, you get a yes or no. I like to look at my votes as meaningful votes. Well, not everyone does. I look at it as, okay, if I were the only one voting, this would either pass or not pass. I think that's the proper way to look at your votes. It's, am I perfect at that philosophy every single time? Not always, because I know people are going to be really mad at me if I do something a certain way. I get that. But I try to say, look, this is the vote that matters, and you got to govern in the end. A lot of people don't see it that way. They see their vote as maybe a protest votes or just vote no so I can and then claim some principle. It's easy to find anything in legislation that you don't like. It's easy, super easy. It's also easy that if you can't find something you don't like, it's easy to find something you do like that's not in the legislation. Well, it doesn't cure cancer, but it's not supposed to. It's supposed to fund the military. Yeah, but it doesn't cure cancer. Can't go for it. I mean, honestly, that's how silly it gets sometimes in Congress. I try not to view it. I try not to view my vote that way, and that can get you in trouble sometimes because you got to take there's not a perfect button. It doesn't exist. There's a presence button, but that's a loser button. Nobody presses that button, and there's no perfect button. So it's either yes or no, and you move forward the best you can. So that's a quick view of what we do. Now, that's very different than what you guys do.
Yeah, it is very different. One of the big ones that I don't envy for your role, you guys have elections every 2 years. Mine's every 4 years. So it's better. That is better. I have more of an administrative role where the federal government's broken down into 3 branches. So I guess I had to compare it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess I'd be executive and kind of the legislative, even though local government, we don't make laws. And we're not a municipality, so we don't create ordinances either. But we do have rules and things that we do vote on and follow. But some of the primary functions out of my office and that the county commissioner takes care of, along with working with the other entities like cities, or the state, or different districts set up, or local congressmen. We take care of the infrastructure, the drainage, and the tax rates. Not all the tax rates, because one of the challenges I face as a county commissioner is I take all the heat, all the taxes. You get your tax bill that says Montgomery County, and I've only got about a small fraction of the resources to actually do the job. And I didn't get up here to program about that, but the property taxes. Yeah, it is. It's informative, you know, property taxes broke down. You got the county that makes it up, and then the school district, then you get your mud districts and those little things like that. They're added Laurel, and the county takes a small percentage. We get other districts and entities that have sales tax and other portions of tax money with budgets that make mine pretty small, and the precinct size in the area that we maintain infrastructure and drainage are, it pales in size. So the precinct that's the largest in the county, and it's at least 3 to 4 times larger than all these different districts or school districts, what have you. So that's some of the challenging pieces of it, but probably some of the stuff that folks don't know about the job.
Can you give some examples on what kind of things you're voting on in Commissioner's Court?
Good question. So it goes from small things like no parking sign on side of the road near a school or something, no overnight parking, where big trucks are parking, no through roads, new developments, or different regulations that help govern our local area, how we can build and how we manage the drainage, up to, like I said, the tax rates, which we review budget workshop annually. So it goes from smallest thing in the county, well, I call it the smallest thing in the county, to a sign placement, up to the amount of taxes you pay each year.
Yeah, and that's super interesting. And you went over kind of why you decided to run for this position. You need like background in construction, building things, see in your own hometown, what needs to be done, and that drove you to run for that position. What drove me to run for this position, I suppose, because my background is more federal, right? I did my master's degree in public policy, domestic economic policy, national security related issues, international relations. That's all the kind of stuff we would see at the federal level. We do a lot of work on foreign policy. So again, it's not like a higher level of government. It's just different. It's just different. And if anything, I envy local government officials a lot, because every day you have something tangible that you're working on that you can talk about. For us, it's very different. It's supposed to be hard to pass bills at the national level. People are always like, why don't you just get things done? Just use common sense and get things done. So, well, your sense of common sense is different from your neighbor's sense of common sense. And our founders said, and rightfully said, that it should be very difficult to make national law, law that affects the entire country. It turns out we've got a pretty diverse country, and we got a diverse, just here are the woodlands, it's pretty diverse. I mean, it's just like, people have very different opinions on it. And so to make national law should be difficult. And there's always a temptation to make it less difficult for expediency, for that short-term gain. I promise you that could end up in long-term pain. The example is always asked about it. What about the Senate filibuster? Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it for this one time. Let's get some things done. We will get things done. That is true. And then we will lose elections, and they will all be undone. Possibly even worse than we started with. That's the reality. And right now in our politics, the American people like whiplash. Most people say they don't, but that's how they're voting. It's that's what I've seen it, right? The House moves over pretty quickly, one to the other presidency as well. So it's highly likely that you can be careful what you wish for. But I got into this because I cared about policy issues. Ranging from local, but also all the way to international. My background lends itself to that, and wasn't actually planning on going into politics. I don't know if everybody knows that story. I was never wanted to be the SEAL teams under my master's degree, and then I was networking like anyone does for a job in something related to national security. Right, that's again my background. And in the midst of that, meeting with somebody, the guy went for Senator Tom Cotton actually, and he was like, "Why don't you just run for Congress?" And when I SEAL, that seems like it's a decent thing to run on. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, just like that is the run for Congress. Um, and I never thought about it, but I was thinking about it in terms of like, let me do policy work for 10, 15 years and run when I'm old like everybody else. And I figured that was what you do. Um, and he's like, yeah, I just love, well, what district you're from? He asked me, it's the second district, Texas. And I looked it up and said, oh, I just announced retirement that literally the night before. So the 3 days later, I went back with my parents and here we are, you know, fighting for our lives again. It's over. So, okay, so I play this funny game, is we have dinners and whatnot, and I have to make conversation with the large group of people, so I have to go around the room and say, ask everybody a question sometimes. And my favorite question, and this it's especially entertaining in DC. If you ask this question in Texas, people generally have pretty good answers. You understand why we get the question. But if you ask it in DC, you watch people squirm pretty quickly. So here's the question. Okay, what is your skill set in the zombie apocalypse? And okay, so now you see why in DC they don't have skills. Like, geez, can you do anything? Can you sell? Can you grow food? Can you the zombie apocalypse is coming out in Texas? Everyone's like, well, I have like 10,000 rounds of ammo and a bunch of guns. Is that good? I'm like, that's good. They gotta get tools. Can you work your tools? People in DC, no. Like, well, they're like, I can do drywall. I'm like, explain to me how you do drywall. And they have no, and then they just they all flustered. They've never actually done it. I would venture to say that you'd be a good guy to know in the zombie apocalypse. Like you got the right. I would come to your office and your everything you got. I mean, I about like what kind of equipment you guys just have on hand at all times.
Got a pretty wide range. So our main bread and butter are our gray laws. So East Montgomery County, I'd say it's historically known for being low and having water issues. All the tributaries in the county kind of converge, and we've got the confluence that comes through with the East Fork and the West Fork of the San Jacinto. All the creeks kind of meet up here. So when you get something like Hurricane Harvey, he can't control what happens, but then it's on everybody's radar. So we work those grade alls, and that's what we go in and maintain all the ditches, all the roadside ditches. Not on the state roads, these are on the county roads. And we run 6 of those, got 4 teams. And then, we've got our road crews, just water trucks, to sweepers, to, we don't have a paving machine. We ran the numbers, worked through it all. We do all the prep, and it's actually cheaper. We stretch your tax dollar and get more bang for our buck by contracting out the asphalt and the blacktop portion. So we do all the prep and get it ready. One neat thing, it's kind of funny to sit there and write about as far as equipment, but this is just dynamic freezing in Montgomery County. You've got, I don't know if you know the corners, it basically goes from Kingwood, north to Cleveland, across to Conroe, back south to the Woodlands, you follow the river back down to Kingwood. Everything in between is precinct 4, which I sit over. So we've got rapid development, growth. We've got rural areas, suburban, and we're even moving into the urban. So that's a long-winded way of saying I just want street sweep, not a pistol either. To help service all the neighborhoods that don't have the roadside ditches. We just updated all the development regulations. I can't maintain a 30 or 40 or 50-foot lot with asphalt roads and open ditches. Getting that equipment there without tearing up water lines or driveways. And no one ever did that before or identified it. So when I was rewriting the development regulations over the last several years, which we passed this year, I put in the 70-foot threshold. It's less than 70 foot it needs to be. It has to be curb and gutter. Because it's not realistic for us to get our teams and our equipment in there, tearing up roads and busting up the neighborhood to try to move the water out. Just can't do it. But we've got all that. We've got a fleet of trucks, the guys for all the on-call, lots of chainsaws, our own fueling stations. I bought a $1 million piece of equipment 2 years ago. It's called a reclaimer. That's what goes up and grinds up the roads when we do the new roads. I'm especially proud of that piece. We needed a new one. I could have got a cheaper one for about 600 grand, But I spent the extra money, got the higher horsepower, and it doesn't have the DEF systems, which you see that are killing like fire trucks and big piece of equipment. So this is actually gonna stretch your tax dollars well beyond, the lifetime of one of the cheaper pieces of equipment when it costs. And that's the piece of this job I enjoy, figuring out how to make the money go further, how to get good equipment, how to run efficient, streamline operations, and put more product on the ground. That's my problem. That's what I'm saying.
And it's interesting, I'm not sure everyone realizes that a county commissioner, at least in Texas, it's different from the state. But basically like you're a construction and engineering company. And so, the way we interact, our jobs as we interact together, we take on, and this is across the district, we take feedback from the bottom up, and especially for communication. Like I since 2018, I ran 2018, I was like right on the back of Hurricane Harvey. And as many people, in East Montgomery County, Lake Houston area, western part of my district, spring, they feel like Hurricane Harvey was yesterday. And that's still how it feels. And so every single year we're asking for earmarks for more flood mitigation projects, but I don't know exactly what to ask for unless we talk to the guys like Matt or that Matt also used to be Harris County Flood Control District back when it was run well under him, and not so much anymore. But those are the folks we work with, and that's how we're able to get all this list for the sake of communicating to my constituents. We're going to say what we've done. These projects very recently in Montgomery County, we got $5 million for the Sawdust Bridge elevation. I don't know if that's in your or if that's in or Wheelers, but it's that flooded, and so we got to elevate it. We got the radio tower replacement, $4 million for that. That's for emergency communication. That's important for our law enforcement and emergency services. We're working on the Ford Road. We got the money for Ford Road. We went toward that. He's doing a great job. Tearing up asphalt, making it better. Right. So there's a lot of reasons you need that road improvement. It's fluid areas. It's really only one of the three ways to get out in case of emergency flooding. We're doing $1 million for the FM 1488 rehab and drainage. We got that again for law enforcement. I think this is the only project we've ever funded that's not exactly to do with flood mitigation infrastructure. But this is important. Really, it was $1.65 million for that active shooter defense training facility. I still want to go to that. Good shooting there. Yeah. And the $700,000 Montgomery County Bridge. That's just a few things. We're all in all, my job is to go through the appropriations process, and earmarks are a dirty word in some conservative circles. Have been for a long time, and for good reason, because they were abused for so long, and there wasn't good guardrails put on what we call earmarks. We've actually called them community project funds, but I like to just be honest with you and tell you what they are. They're earmarks. And they were outlawed actually for a long time, outbeating by our own rules in the House. We just voted to bring them back. And we decided to bring them back because look, top line budget doesn't change. It's not like we're saving you any money as a taxpayer by not doing earmarks. What we're actually doing is making sure that that money goes to bureaucrats instead of being able to be spent by me so that I can give it to him to rebuild a Ford Road. Like that's how that relationship works. And I think that works a lot better. And because nobody knows what projects are needed more than the local representatives who talk to their congressman. And when we did bring them back in 2021, we put a lot more guardrails on them too. So you're not seeing super silly projects like you might have heard of in the past. Studies on lesbian beekeeping or whatever it is. It was nonsense. And that's what frustrated people, and eventually why they got rid of them. But we brought them back, and I make sure that I can defend each and every one of these, and I'm making sure that we use this money as we're saving lives and saving property.
Congressman, real quick, let me jump in and strip that down just a little bit more for the viewers and for the audience. You work in Washington and Congress, you guys don't see the future labors and the work you put in for years. This is something that we see in pretty short turnaround, a couple of years. And, this is money we've already paid taxes on for our federal taxes that comes back locally, fixes drainage issues, puts new asphalt on the ground, opens up mobility. This isn't our federal dollars going and buying a ton of condoms for a Middle Eastern company or doing transgender studies or some crap somewhere else. This is dollars that are coming back here. And you have, you've helped us and your team have helped us a lot. And, like Ford Road, for example, has needed work, needed to be improved for about 25 years. It is a hurricane evacuation route. And, with the federal dollars that came back, we're working on it. The active shooter training facility that the congressman's talking about, that's New Caney, that's the old New Caney Intermediate that I went to school at. That's what training law enforcement all over Montgomery County, people flying from all over the country to train there. And, you know, we're getting a bunch of design. I've got one, a while ago, you heard me talk about this being a rural, suburban and urban precinct. Well, in some of the rural areas, I still have wooden bridges. Now I'm trying to get new bridges with the help of our state leaders, our federal leaders, Congressman Crenshaw and Congressman Luttrell. You've been helping me with that. I've got funding, we're getting design and engineering done. And that's where that money comes back and makes a difference locally. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't gloss over it too fast. Because this is serious. It's something I take serious. It's something you take serious whether you do it or not, because this is taxes you pay to the federal government that are coming back here to East Montgomery County. So appreciate all your help doing that and getting them back.
It's one of the few ways that we can feel good about ourselves. And it's hard to pass laws. It's hard to get things done. It's supposed to be hard. People ask why I'm frustrated by Washington and all that. I say no, because I took a civics class. I know how it's supposed to work. The Constitution says it will be frustrating. It doesn't exactly say that, but to read it, that's what you shouldn't do it. It's going to be frustrating. It's supposed to be that way. Especially when you have divided government, which we always will have. That's not going away. We're one of the last countries on earth, if not the last country on earth, but it is really, truly 50-50 when it's left and right. I mean, it really is. And, you know, there's a balance there, and that's why we have all these great checks and balances in our system. I won't go on a long tirade about the civics discussion. Let's talk about growth. Let's talk about economic growth. I think there's some people are worried, some people are excited about all the potential development in East Montgomery County, at large. How do we deal with that in a smart way? And you know, we'll obviously we need to put flooding measures in place. I think that's let's say that part's obvious. Now, you know, are you guys going to vote on additional requirements for flood mitigation? This happened in Harris County, so they start requiring different elevations and all sorts of things. Is that something that's going to need to happen as development takes off in Montgomery County? I'll put you on the spot on that, but I don't know, just generally, how do you see the potential more development?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be on the hot seat about it. My office and myself personally have worked very long hours over the last several years, and this year alone, we got unanimous support to the board and voted on new regulations for development, and we talked about earlier, new drainage criteria, a new drainage criteria manual, new floodplain manual. We were already working on the floodplain manual and updating that to take our local wetlands serious, take local people's health and safety serious, and we were already addressing that before the West Texas floods happened in floodplain areas. So those are some of the measures that we've taken here. That was one of the things that I saw was the rapid growth that we were experiencing during the COVID era that again made me want to run and address it, because it was a little bit of a free for all, and nobody likes to see that happen. So get a little more federal support, get that wall across the border built up, build us a wall across the county line from Harris County, maybe
There's still some good people in Harris County, all right, and I represent both.
I'm sorry. Maybe between here and California.
Yeah, I'll show you where the lines are. Yeah, I'm with you, but
We gotta have a little bit of fun up here, right?
yeah.
So, but yeah, those different regulations, and, this is Texas, you know, we're a state of free enterprise. We're a property rights state. But we've got to have responsible growth. We do have to manage it and steer it. You can't just have a free for all, because I view, this position with local governance as, I'm here to protect your investments, which is your home. That's an investment. And, we also want to help protect someone who's building or opening a business or develop. That's an investment for them. So everybody should thrive and flourish, you know, and, no one should be worried or at risk of getting your property, flooded out, or an issue like that happening. And I think with the new measures, we're seeing, you know, we're seeing a net positive. They're getting more water, they're processing the water out. And I think good things are happening. We do have challenges with it, you know, due to, a lot of it unincorporated, but, you know,
Can you explain that's off the incorporated stuff, you know, that's confusing to a lot of folks.
yeah, well, it's confusing stuff, so. For example, here on the 59 stretch where we're at, some of the cities, Wood Ranch is the city, Roman Forest is the city, Splendora is the city. And in those municipalities, you can have zoning, which gives you an extra layer of protection. And you can create ordinances. I can't create ordinances as a county commissioner. It's a lot more challenging to say that we can't have this kind of development here in the county. I can't say that, but in the city you can. So, you know, that there's a certain type of business. You know, if there's I don't know, I'll just a beer joint or something. You can put that somewhere in the county, but you know, you can write an ordinance and Roman Forest or whatever the city is, and you can't do that. You can have noise ordinances, whatever. So I think that's but also in those municipalities and cities, you pay an extra tax. So that's the big differences, the big delta that jumps out to me between incorporated and unincorporated. So incorporated is a city, unincorporated is you're outside of the city.
Unincorporated and then essentially governed by the county.
Yeah, and I guess since we brought it up, we'll put this out. The city does trump the county.
Yeah.
And how it's governed.
Local control.
Yes.
And you know, as far as development goes, I'll just say this, you know, from the federal level, we look at broad-based regulations. We want it to be easier to build things. We don't want the federal government getting in the way of those local decisions. It's hard enough to get past the local decisions. I mean, there's all sorts of roadblocks to development. Sometimes those are necessary. Sometimes it's NIMBYism, right? Not in my backyard. That's always used as a bad word, but I also get it. Well, sometimes local people just don't want things in their backyard. Okay. Well, that's a community decision. I mean, that's one roadblock. Another roadblock is just local regulations, and whatever ordinances might be out there. Maybe it's zoning laws. In Houston, there's no zoning laws. Many cities do have zoning laws. That's a local decision. Some people want to live that way. Maybe that makes sense. I view it as our job from the federal level to we take a much larger step back from all that and just say, look, you guys figure it out at the local level, but we shouldn't be making it harder on top of all that. And so there's things like NEPA reform. NEPA is the National Environmental Protection Act. And of course, there should be environmental protection, but it should be sensible. This is the constant fight we're having in Congress. It's not whether there should be an EPA or a Clean Air Act or a Clean Water Act. We don't disagree that these things have been wildly beneficial for the American public. I mean, you know, we used to have a very polluted world, and yet we've massively increased our population and economic growth, and we've massively decreased pollutants in the air and cleaner water. That's all great. But just because one regulation is good does not mean 10 more are better. Like there's a diminishing return on investment. That's a general conservative philosophy, and also common sense, which generally coincides with conservative philosophy, in my opinion. Democrats tend to think that if one regulation is good, well, you just got to keep adding more. You just got to keep adding more, and if you start tweaking any that you're trying to destroy the environment. So we're working on things actually as we speak right now. Reforms of Clean Air Act. There's this thing called the endangerment finding. The EPA just changed their rule on, which is great, but we need to codify it. We're currently writing that legislation. Those two guys back there, they're actually they're visiting from DC. They're solid legislative team over there. They're fantastic. And they're the kind of guys who start writing that. They'll work with our committee staff who are, there's more professional committee staff that do this exact thing all the time. They work with them. And that's how we get bills written. Okay, and then he goes, by the way, that's just saying how a bill gets written. That's how it starts. I'm like, yes, we need to codify this. Then we start working on it. Then he goes to committee, who gets help from them. We'll get what's called technical assistance from agencies like the EPA. It's like, okay, how exactly does it need to be written so it does the thing we want it to do? Then goes to lawyers called legislative counsel. I don't even know where they were. Right, they're somewhere in Capitol Hill in the basement. I don't know, a bunch of lawyers. And they actually write the impossible to read legislation that you actually see. This is why it's so difficult for people to read it, and why there's so much misinformation about legislation so often, because it's written, it has to be written as if you're editing U.S. code. So it's not, if you're reading, all of you have read like a contract or something, right? And like by a lawyer. You're like, what does this say? Okay, it's worse than that. It's way worse than that. Because it's not just that the language is difficult to understand, it's that it's literally editing US code. Because that's what the bill is doing, and oftentimes it's what the bill is doing. So you're amending section whatever of US code A, and you're taking away the word the, and you're inserting the word or. It's so if you don't understand how the law was written before and how this changes it, it's like reading Greek. Or let's say it's like reading let's say French, right? If you don't speak French, you can like sound out the words, but it's like I don't know what it says. And so that's how that process goes. So we rely, when we look at bills, we're really looking at legislative summaries. And doing that background work on them just to make sure like we actually know what's in it. It's also why bills are so long. So people say, well, it's thousands of pages, that must be bad. Well, it's long because one, our margins are like this thick for some reason. It's triple spaced, I don't know why. And so that's the only reason why there's thousands of pages, but also because you're literally editing US code. So it's just a lot of extra words oftentimes. All right, just a quick lesson in how we do legislation, and and why we have to have teams of people to really go through it. All right, moving on. Oh well, actually, when you say on that, sorry, well, I got sidetracked. The development. So we're on Clean Air Act stuff. We want to make it easier on you. We wanted the Speed Act passed in December. That's a really good bill. And that does a few things. Speeds up NEPA permitting reform, because the Environmental Protection Act, again, great, but it also puts a lot of roadblocks in building things. I don't want to spend a lot more money on infrastructure if it's impossible to build infrastructure. I remember the Democrats before this big infrastructure bill back when they were in power, and a lot of Republicans voted for it. I didn't. I didn't because it said, like, before we spend $1 trillion on infrastructure, we gotta make it easier to build the things we say we're going to build. And like a lot of that money still hasn't been spent because it's too hard to spend it because we can't build anything. There's the 10 West transmission line project, right? Because the Democrats love solar so much that they want to have all the solar panels in Arizona. They want to build a 125 miles of transmission line to California. This is like back in 2015, still not done. It took us less time to go to the moon in the 60s. That's crazy. And these are the kind of things we've got to figure out. The other thing we're trying to work on is judicial activism. You want to build an off ramp on a highway or widen a highway. environmental activists will sue, and so I'm not sure this happens so much around here, maybe you have an example, but
Yeah.
it'll sue and sue and sue and put you in court, and like developers, like, okay, you know what, forget it. You're done. All the investment dries up because they just give up. You can't afford to keep going on a project, keep going that long.
They were doing that
We gotta stop that.
They were doing that on 45.
Yeah, 45 for sure, funded by, I don't want to say who, but I know.
I mean, there was tons of them. First got in office, they were, so they were allocating all this money for these center medians. Had to do, and we had to protest and make hundreds of calls and have these community meetings to kill them. So we don't have the center medians on 1314 or 1485, but they got them over on Crosstown. I won't pick on any of the other guys or their roads, but they've got them, and they're not good. They're a pain in the butt. And, you know, we've got all the new lighting on 1314 now. I was asking the state, I'm like, can we keep this towards some of the drainage here on the road instead, and specifically allocated for this. We've got some conferences coming up. We'll be addressing some of the trying to address and speak with the Secretary of Transportation on things like some of the federal money comes down that has things attached to it, to where on a new road you've got to build sidewalks. We don't need sidewalks on the side of 105, not for another 50 years.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense. And approaches on bridge, little things, we're in the weeds on it, but stuff that will make it easier to do the pass through and make mobility, you know, just moving around in the area easier. Real quick, Congressman, I do have to give a shout out to my buddy Tom Ramsey and Fred Flickinger over at Harris County. I do. I was picking on, and we do have a great partner.
We got good parts there.
Yeah, no, I know. I was teasing a little hard, but and you talked about with the development, and you know they changed elevations. Our drainage doesn't match areas. But I would also argue, and we have argued, that there's not a silver bullet to drainage. You implement some of that, and you know it could have other adverse impacts on older communities, like we have around here. And I'll just restate, it's not a silver bullet for how we handle developmental drainage and things like that. So.
Yeah, it is often very specific to each culture, what the problem is. Speaks that very well. And again, Matt Steve in the audience, again, shout out to that guy. He's worked with us so much on flooding issues and just an absolute expert on it. What were we at? How are we doing on time? Should we just go to questions?
Yes.
Let's go to questions from the audience. I don't know. I know we have probably some from line, but let's start with folks who showed up today.
From the outside looking in on the federal level, it seems there's no bipartisan support really for anything. You sense that changing, and you mentioned it being frustrating, and I consider fiscal conservative policy would be something common sense. From where you sit, does it get frustrating to deal with the other side sometimes?
I'm going to repeat your question for the people online and everyone here. So yes, bipartisanship seems impossible. You know, does it ever happen? Does it get frustrating sometimes? Because a lot of this, especially the fiscal responsibility or fiscal conservatism, seems like common sense stuff, especially when you're talking about some of these regulatory issues. Yeah, it's frustrating because you're like, I know you don't believe. That's what frustrates me. It's like, I know you don't really believe what you're saying. That makes me frustrated. But again, they might not believe it, but their base does, you know, so they are representing, I guess, a portion of people that believe some crazy stuff. That's the essence of democracy and representative public government. So I'm frustrated by it, but I can't change it. I can debate them, I can try and beat them in an argument. Facts don't matter, you know. They've already made up their mind on so much of this stuff. I'll give you an example, Jay. Right now, we're trying to push through something, a reform to advanced recycling. You would think Democrats would be like, yeah, advanced recycling sounds great. Because all we're doing, I mean, more complicated than this, but basically what we're doing is we're saying, like, in these advanced recycling techniques, which uses, you know, again, more modern chemical processes to break down plastics and use them again. It's cheap, it's profitable for companies, but there's a lot of regulations get in the way of doing it. And one of them is the fact that we we regulate it as a waste product as opposed to a commodity. It really needs to be regulated as a manufacturing product. And you would think that'd be easy, common sense stuff to get them to agree on, but they're being very, and I think maybe we will, but like there's so far, I don't think we have any Democrats on that, do we?
Close.
Or yeah, it's like we're not, close, we're like, we're not even like, it's really like, it's, they should be all over that, it's recycling for God's sakes. Much harder to get them on other things we want to do, so we're reforming the Toxic Substance Chemicals Act, which supported a lot of the petrochemical industry around here. And we're reforming it because it needs to be reauthorized. So that's always our chance to reform things. That's generally how we do it. It's like something's about to expire, so it's our chance to reform. One of the things I'm working on that particular bill is this kind of risk versus hazard approach. It's stopping the EPA. Not like our current EPA is not doing this, and they're more sensible. But God forbid Gavin Newsom wins in 2028. I'm not trying to scare anyone, I'm just saying God forbid. All right, that's why voting matters, folks. And speak to your out-of-staters too. And but that EPA might like to take this this hazard approach. So if the chemical is hazardous, well then we need to overregulate it as such, as opposed to assessing the realistic risk that it poses. So like they use their imagination. Like, well, what if someone's not wearing gloves? And they're like, well, wait a second. OSHA standards say they have to. Of course they're wearing gloves. Well, what if they drink it? Why would they drink it? It's so they again using dumb imaginations like make regulations doesn't make sense. So doing stuff like that, you would think it's common sense, but it's not. But also, okay, but on the flip side, what people don't know about Congress is the vast majority of bills that we pass are overwhelmingly bipartisan. Now, they're not big things like this permitting reform. That's a big thing. Healthcare reform is a big thing. Immigration is a big thing. That stuff's tough to be bipartisan. But if we every week we're passing, I don't know, between 2 and 10 suspension bills. And by suspension bills, that's a term we say. We mean we're suspending the rules of debate because we know we can get 2/3 of Congress to vote for it because it's overwhelmingly bipartisan and it's non-controversial. And there's a bunch of there's a huge backlog of those kind of bills that are honestly just used to like kill time sometimes, like while we're debating the stuff that's hard to pass. They're used to get people to return. So we have what we call them flying votes. Hey, we're gonna have floats at 6:30 p.m. on Monday. This Monday it's usually Monday or Tuesday, and we call them flying votes because they're non-controversial votes. There's not something that it's just to get members back in town, and so overwhelmingly bipartisan. Most of the things we pass. Now they go to the Senate, and the Senate doesn't vote like we do. We vote with a card, and it's quick. We can vote. We do 10 votes, and we make it 2 minute votes if we want to, and it can go real fast. Senate doesn't do that. They vote roll call, so then it takes a while for these easy bipartisan bills to actually make it to the Senate. They have to put them all into one giant package and then vote once on it, and then they all get on their walkers and they like yes, and then they go back to their hospital bed. So it's a lot of our bills is like they go to the Senate to die, and a lot of people go to the Senate to die. All right, enough of that. Question.
One for each of you. What made you accept the invitation to our hometown here today?
Sorry.
What made us accept the
Yeah.
invitation? We invited you.
I assumed that you were invited.
Yeah.
So
I invited you. What made you come? Oh, really? So we do this. We of course we work with the owner. We work with the owner here, and yeah. I mean, this is something we do all over the district. Yeah.
Great. My question. What brought you to the decision to come here to our hometown?
So this particular kind of event that I call the Coffee with Crenshaw, I've been doing this for years, and we take different parts of the district all the
So
time,
what, how do you choose this?
because we haven't come to this place yet. That's all.
We're glad it's good.
There's no,
Oh, absolutely.
there's no, I don't know whether maybe it's just, yeah, it's just, we do it all over the place. We haven't done one with Commissioner Trey, yeah, so we do this, we do this.
District.
Yeah, yeah, but, you know, we work down here, great spot to do it, so. That's all, we invited you, thank you for coming, what made you come?
I came to see how you guys felt about the certain current situations and what your answers would be and what your answers sounded like, and I've heard plenty. Mr. Gray, how will the SAFE Act affect our public school funding with the increase on 30% increase in population over the past 5 years? How will the SAFE Act affect our local public school funding?
You're referring to the same act that we just voted on?
I'm asking Mr. Gray.
I know, but I'm just making this to clarify, it's not the, this, the Save America
The
Act.
voucher program.
Oh, wait, no, so there's something different, okay, sorry, something could be called off the state act, just want to make sure we know.
I apologize, I was asking.
So you're talking about the state,
Yes, sir.
okay,
So
Might
how,
have to be valid.
how do you think that will improve our funding for our school districts, our local school districts?
I'm not really sure. It's not really my wheelhouse. State, the school taxes, and the property taxes, and the appraisal district, it's like a dog chasing its tail as it is. So I don't really have a strong opinion on the school act. I kind of stay in my lane. I have that privilege with being over infrastructure and projects and tax rates for the county, so not real involved with the schools.
I think what we promised to do is next time we do a copy with Crenshaw, we'll bring on one of our state reps to answer this kind of question. I mean, exactly what I was voting
I
on.
was just curious what makes you decide here in Florida.
It's my district, it's my district, you know, so, I mean, any further conversations was.
That's what usually,
Yeah.
what she's getting at.
Right, I've been here 6 generations, I feel like we, as you said, we never had anyone.
But that's,
So I'm
you know,
curious.
we've done plenty of events up here, and not this taking the time, but,
Sure.
you know, been up here a lot.
You've been here since.
6 generations, yes, sir. Huh?
How old are you? Like, that is all.
Family, I've been here for 6 generations.
I was kidding.
So, I'm only, we've only represented for a few years, but we're a lot this area, so.
So that's good. I'll speak to that too. I'm glad to bring that up. And I'll answer some of that question as well. Why did we, well, we were invited. I was invited by you, thank you, Congressman. And when I ran on the main platforms I ran on, and I think I have held up my end on being transparent, just like being here this morning. And we do a ton of work across this entire precinct. So we love sharing the details on a lot of the projects we're doing, the road projects we're doing. We've done all kinds of work over here. One of the ones I'm particularly excited about is the D-snag with the funding from the general land office that we got. We got $36 million for East Montgomery County. We ran 51 outfall and drainage projects, primarily here in Splendora and New Caney, in the last 18 to 20 months. And we're also fixing to take this $36 million, which D-snag, Peach Creek, Caney Creek, east fork of the San Jacinto River and White Oak. And it's going to have a huge impact on helping move the water. When the water's not backing up and it's not coming out of its banks as quick, which is reducing flooding, making your life, and my life all better who live right here in precinct 4.
Mr. Gray, what I find to be problematic here is I think that municipalities or precincts which you represent and the private sector have a problem communicating. For example, the railroad tracks, I know it's usually transient, but when there's problems with the culverts and you try to go and find out who's responsible for digging the trees out, everybody's passing the buck there. There needs to be some type of oversight committee say, you're in charge of this side of track and that side of that. I've been through a lot of hell with this. It's not the nature of me asking you this, but I was listening to how you guys are supposedly working together. But you can't get a straight answer when you have issues. You call Union Pacific, you call the highway department, you call precinct 4, and you know, you call Swindora a city, but yet they don't, what do they do besides take money? I mean, they don't have a something to clean their city taxes. I was under this annexation battle when it occurred because I was not in the city in those days. I was in East Montgomery County. They just voted, said, let's annex. I had a hearing. It was sort of a kangaroo trial. But when it comes time to hold the responsibility, when you annex something, you're supposed to have an infrastructure to govern those issues, and they don't. And that's where I would like to see on the state level, things change, because it becomes a money pit for them. It's another name put in that column for that city to take the tax revenues. Instead of deliver, you know, if you pay for something, 100% of something, that means you want to get 100% of what you paid for. That doesn't occur here. And that's some of the issues that we have here.
That would be a mouthful of a question and statement to try to rephrase for the camera, so I'll jump into the answer, and the short answer is bureaucracy. We're all victims of it. And a little more in-depth answer is
No,
Swindora, that they're over the water.
no, they're over collecting the money for.
That's a big thing. They do control the water, but the railroad is a challenging piece to deal with, and I've gotten eaten alive. I got skinned alive when I first got in office, because I thought I could go in and work with the local guys. I was a little bit ignorant to some of that UP process as well. And, where they showed me who was boss, and we were doing those crossovers across the railroad. We also had big issues to where the train kept stopping over the tracks. And I had to reach out to Congressman Crenshaw's office, and Congressman Crenshaw, and they ran it all the way up the flagpole. They got it fixed. They had moved some sensors in this area, had been suffering from it over in Shadow Woods and the dam area where the train, it was single point entry, and the train would stop across the tracks. And that's just how it is with the railroad. Now, if we get, again, bureaucracy, but if we've got the actual issue, it is hard to navigate UP and the railroad. One of the most powerful forces in the country.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I wish I had a clean, straight answer that was.
They endlessly create ordinances for small business people and homeowners, but they don't create ordinances for their governing body on bustling people like me and others around here. I mean, there's nothing. If that floods, which it did, and it cost me a lot of money, it's in the Court of Appeals right now. Nobody wants to take, it's these guys, it's these guys, but yet the Railroad Commission is the one that governs Union Pacific running up and down the road, and they're in their back pocket all the way, so I mean, it doesn't take, level that.
It's definitely challenging, and it's tough for my office sometimes too, navigating some of it.
Yeah, but you're fighting for your office and what your issues are there instead of fighting for the rest of us and our issues along with your issues against them. That's where we need to draw a line and start getting real representation instead of paying 100% of something and not getting 100% of what it's due. That's accountability.
You're getting all my representation, I can tell you, and you're getting all my staffs, work long hours, and very proud of the work and representation that we provide. I haven't voted for a single tax increase since I've been on the court. I will not vote for a single tax increase. Matter of fact, I've applied for well over $120 million in under 4 years, in the 3-year mark, to bring tax dollars, federal and state, back to East Montgomery County. That is the very definition of representation. And I've been awarded over $60 million in federal and state awards to bring that money back here. With this meager budget that I have to provide service to this entire precinct, which is not near enough, I've brought 6 times my annual budget back here to work on infrastructure and drainage.
I appreciate the accolades, and I'm trying to talk about is we need to do real representation and communication. We need a liaison between these entities that we're dealing with and paying 100% of our taxes and not getting 100% return on our investment.
We're in front of you, so understand your frustration. I think it's a combination of your Nora government, is what you're telling us, and also really is a state, this is a state representation issue. Because you're dealing with the railroad commission. You help us, this is kind of time to say, look, help us write out exactly what kind of problems you've been dealing with here. Send it to our offices. We can start to flesh out from that. Okay, who does what? And like, where is this hang up exactly? Where is the bureaucratic hang up? What's the problem? And then who is actually in charge of the solution? We can investigate that a little easier than you can on your own. You just tell us in more detail like what happened. Appreciate like writing that out is usually a good way to do that.
We've got
Because I don't exactly know what you mean, what the problem is. I don't
We've got-
Representative.
I got a question.
We've got time over here. One more
Water
question.
Representative Fry.
I'm not your state representative, you're federal. So.
We've got one more question here.
I'm Crenshaw, Mayor Anderson City Pack, glad to have you guys here. Appreciate all the stuff you did. Actually, you've helped us at the city of Patton Village. You've helped us, able to be able to get a FEMA road project back on the ground when we couldn't get a road project on the ground. It was held up for many years and, through some bureaucracy, and he was able to help us, and we're now fixing to get started on that. Mr. Gray over there, I really appreciate you. You've helped us when we called out and helped us on many situations. Mr. Gray has helped us on, some bridge work and, as, we still owe him a part of that money back if we're working on FEMA. But, you guys have, every time we called out, you guys have helped us. We really appreciate that. I mean, our little town is so little, but we expect, we don't have that, resources like you guys do. And I really appreciate you coming out today. I appreciate y'all coming out and helping us and giving us part. But on a federal level, I was gonna ask, we're doing a lot of infrastructure right now, and we're doing a lot of mitigation work and stuff. Is FEMA gonna change any of the flood map structure when, especially with Harvey and Melda and all that stuff going on? Even though I know Commissioner Gray's doing a lot of work, and I know we're doing a lot of mitigation work, is that gonna kind of change the dynamic of the flood area?
I think it's literally in the process right now. I mean, I think Cam can answer this one a little bit better, but like within the last couple of weeks, there's some changes and now they're being verified. Is that about right? You're gonna see new flood maps.
Okay.
Very soon.
For Montgomery County.
Yeah.
That is nationwide. Is that? Wait now.
Yeah. I think I do.
Yeah, I think it's that. I mean, this is like nationwide flood maps.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's taking a long time. But, in spring, yesterday, we're just 110 at the flooded area. It's one of those places where I said with parking like yesterday. These folks, and, we're trying to get a detention basin built there. Get a detention basin built, get some kind of drainage fixed, whatever it is. I mean, there's that feeds into your premiums into flood insurance. That's worth knowing. That's why it's so important to get some of these projects done, because that gets accounted for immediately into the premiums that you pay on flood insurance.
And thank you for the kind words, Mayor. And to your point, we're happy to continue to support our small cities. My office, like the past, we make it a point. There's a drainage issue, mobility issue, mosquitoes. We're not going to hold the small cities over a barrel with an ILA to pay us back. Charlotte, I see here from what branch you can confirm that we've come in, we dig it up. We do the same thing in Spindle, Roman Forest, or whatever small city. We represent you. We're going to come in and do the work. Congressman, thank you so much for having me on this morning. I really appreciate it. I always like to brag on my team and talk about the great things we're doing here. And appreciate all your support for East Montgomery County, especially with these huge mobility projects, our public safety projects that we have. I know it goes over a lot of people's heads, and it wouldn't mind if I wasn't in the know on like the radio towers, support the law enforcement here in Montgomery County, all very big things, and,
It's not the flashy stuff that gets you a lot of engagement on social media, but it's the stuff that actually matters.
it's the stuff that matters. It's the pair of blue jeans and the shirt you put on. It's the stuff that matters. And, big thank you from East Montgomery County.
Thank you for all great things you did. It's great to work with you, man. And for all of you here, appreciate you very much.
Well,